Gamekeeper's Diary, Fox Control. James Marchington is out with Jeff Garrard, seeing how he keeps his birds safe.
With this huge lamp, and we just picked up a little set of eyes.
Crossing continents, we know what we use in the UK for fox shooting. What do they use in South Africa for their equivalents, jackal and caracal?
I just now used a thermal.
Back to the UK, and a deer in a traffic accident is 4 times more likely today than it was in 1980. News correspondent Deborah Hadfield finds out what the government plans to do about it.
A deer will write a car off without thinking about it and then, like I say, just run off.
Plus, gun dealer Ian Hodge explains why you don't need to spend £1,000 on a pre-charged air gun to hunt rabbits. We have news, we have Hunting YouTube. Welcome to Field Sports Britain.
In this DVD we follow gamekeepers in their pursuit of foxes, and controlling them with terriers, bolting them to guns.
We're looking at fox control since making this, and just before we made this there's been a lot of changes in the laws and also techniques and methods and equipment. I can remember the early days before I became a keeper and going out with the keepers where I used to work. We went across this field with this huge lamp, and we just picked up a little set of eyes in the distance. It looked like miles away. It's probably about 200 or 300 yards away, if not a few longer. And he started squeaking with his hand. And I could not believe how quick this fox just bounded across the field. I watched it jump the lamp, because I was on the lamp at the time. I was under strict instructions to keep the lamp just above so in the outer beam you could just see it coming. And when he gave me the drop it, I dropped the lamp on top of it, and it was with a 2.2 Hornet centre fire, and he dropped it about 8 yards in front of me. And it just was the most incredible thing that I'd seen, when it comes to fox control. And that was how I saw it. That was how, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, that was how all the nighttime lamping of foxes was done. But over the years, a lot more people are doing it, which is great. But with the foxes now, with the lamp, if you was to shoot and miss one, the chances are that you'd never get that opportunity again. And then along come the digital world, night vision, night scopes, day-night scopes, thermal imaging. So now, unfortunately, for the poor old lamp, it's been consigned to history. And the new method now of going round in the dark, looking across the fields with a thermal image, picking up your intended victim, and just squeaking it in whichever way, still by hand. That's still a method we use by now, but squeaking it in what seems total darkness, but you're seeing it as clear as anything through the thermal image. And your rifle and scope's ready, IR comes on, there it is right in the middle of your scope, and bang. The good thing about today's method now with the scope and the thermal image spotter is I've missed foxes, and they just have no idea where the bullets come from. And they mooch about, probably thinking, I don't think I should be standing here, but quite not sure. But it gives you that opportunity to quickly load up and take a second shot. So it is a huge step forward in the control of foxes. In those days, foxes were so cunning, so wary of man. When we used to have fox drives, everything used to be meticulously planned. We'd meet up away from the wood. The old keepers one would be puffing on a fag, and one would be throwing up grass to get the wind direction, and they'd work out where this particular wood had to be driven to, always with the wind, so the scent of the standing guns was blowing away from the fox coming towards them. And you'd be walked out by a keeper and he would just point to your spot. You stood there, you never made a sound, you never moved. And at a allotted time, because obviously it's before phones and radios, at say 10 o'clock, we all had to be in position because the drive would start. You'd hear a couple of shots up the front end with the beaters, and 9 times out of 10, within seconds, you'd hear a shot at the front end because the foxes were so, so wary of man. But today, I think, with the development of housing estates and the urban population sort of drifting out in the countryside, foxes have become a lot more tamer and acceptable of man. That's using a shotgun, good old Browning Maxes, stoked up with Eley Alpha Max. I've shot Eley Alpha Max a long time. When I first came into it, it was the favoured cartridge of the old keepers, and I've just stuck with it. And they do the job comprehensively. When it's breaking out at a distance, you've had the shot and you just see it roll over. It is a wow moment sometimes, but normally you hope to get them anywhere between 30 and 50 yards, and the cartridges will do the job. One of the other ones, another way of controlling is with harvest. We're in close contact with the combine drivers, and they understand what goes on, what that they need to be controlled, and if they see something in the corn, they'll give us a shout. So then we pitch up, one either end of the field, and then we just stand there. And as the corn gets taken down, the cover becomes smaller and smaller, gives us a bigger area to cover, and we do account for quite a few like that, through the summertime. This year, haven't seen so many in the harvest because I think it's just purely and simply been too hot. With the drought and the summer, I think it's the first time that I can remember on here where from day one of harvest right to the end, they never stopped. They just cut every single day. Even when they had a little rain shower, a little tiny rain shower, it stopped them for an hour, but they were going again in the afternoon. And I just think it's been too hot. We have had the odd one, but not as many as what we normally do. So, I mean, that's another good method, another good way of, keeping these pests down.
Jeff also uses the modern version of an age-old fox control tool, the snare.
When I first came into keepering, it was a locking snare. And then we've moved on to where we are today, which is the holding device, where if it's a non-target species, it will break, and, set correctly, virtually everything that I've caught in these is still very much alive in the morning, and then they're dispatched by the keeper on their rounds. So, there has been a serious development in the snares as we knew to the holding device that we know today. But like I say, it's not just keepers that use these. A lot of hill farmers need these as well because, they have to protect their livelihood as well.
Well, sure will.
I do have conversations with people that just don't like what we do. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But people need to understand, if you want a thriving wildlife in the countryside, you have to protect them. Take the curlew, for instance. A lot of the curlews go on the grouse moors and the moorlands, for their nesting time. There's no point. The most vulnerable time of their life is when they're sitting on a clutch of eggs, or they've got young chicks, and the curlew at the moment is a red listed species, and it needs to be protected. And the only way you can protect it is to take out its number one enemy out, which is a fox. So there's no point making an area real lovely and wonderful to attract birds to come in to nest and then don't do nothing to protect them while they're nesting. That just seems pointless. Yeah. So controlling of, in my opinion, number one predator, the fox, goes a huge way for the conservation of land management of the countryside.
To find out more about Browning guns, Ely Hawk cartridges and Jack Pike clothing, follow the links in the description below. And for prices and availability on fox shooting kit from dealers all over the country, go to kitfinder.co.uk. Thank you, Jeff. And you may be interested to know that Jeff's sponsor, Browning, was the second most asked for brand on Kitfinder last week after Pulsar. And there is a link to the latest gun trade stats in the description below. Next up, more greying than Browning. It's David on the Field Sports Channel News Stump.
This is Field Sports Channel News. Gamekeepers and Natural England have reared and released 13 hen harrier chicks in 2022. The brood management scheme is part of the government's hen harrier recovery plan, which has been running since 2016. The trial has seen 34 chicks from 9 broods take to the air. Estates in Yorkshire and Cumbria have been participating in the trial, which is done under licence. A specialist bird of prey centre hatches eggs from wild nests and rears chicks for a few weeks before returning them to pens on grouse moors. The birds are tagged and monitored by satellite tracking. More than 75% of the chicks from last year have survived. This beats the RSPB's estimate of 70% of raptors dying in their first year.
Last year, which was 2021, 3 of the birds that I brood managed the year before actually bred and had their own chicks, which is so satisfying.
A consultation on snaring in Scotland could be the first step towards a ban. That's the concern from the Scottish Countryside Alliance, which is one of several organisations that the government is consulting about the use of snares. Unlike England, which is governed by animal welfare rules and a voluntary code of practice, snares for foxes, rabbits or brown hares carry a tag bearing an identification number and saying which animal it is intended to catch. Jake Swindles of the Scottish Countryside Alliance says the design of the snares has developed over the years to improve the welfare of the animals they trap.
If farmers aren't able to snare, then they would have to resort to more shooting. Now, more shooting is limited because of the time of year that you're able to do that with the height of the crops, and it's also a limiting factor on the farmer's livelihood as well. So after a long day out working, the farmer would then have to pick up the gun and go and shoot all evening, which takes the farmer away from their family, which again, you know, may have a knock-on effect where mental health and well-being is concerned. So this isn't just about predator control, this is a whole bigger picture.
The Guardian newspaper falsely claims that the Ritz Hotel in London has taken grouse off the menu. The article is a copy and paste of a press release by the anti-shooting Wild Moors group. When shooter Simon Grace called the hotel to check the truth behind it, staff said this.
The article is based on absolutely no fact whatsoever.
Right.
So we've got grouse on every single menu now.
Right,
so
that's absolutely brilliant. So just to confirm, the Ritz Hotel have got grouse on every single menu, and that article in the Guardian is basically a load of bull.
Yeah.
Simon is not alone. Shooter Steve McGugan rang the hotel to check the facts too.
They weren't taking grouse off the menu. The Ritz have always served grouse, they do serve grouse, and they will always continue to do so, and they're very proud of that. And do you know what, it was nice to hear.
Fears of a cost of living crisis are driving down puppy prices. Breeders all over the UK are reporting a crash in the prices they can get for gun dog puppies. Breeds that were hitting £3,000 during the price boom in lockdown are now selling for less than £1,000. Breeder Chris Harris is experiencing the sharp end of the statistics. His well-bred working Hungarian Wislovic had a litter of puppies earlier in the summer, and he's struggling to find homes for them.
Within the first week, half of the litter was sold, and since then we've had absolutely no interest whatsoever for the last 5 weeks. So it appears that Operation Fear is taking hold.
Cumbria has given up on firearms licensing. Cumbria Constabulary says it has stopped accepting firearm and shotgun grant applications. It claims that this will help it reduce the backlog of variations and renewals. Despite its statutory duty to run a firearms licensing service, Cumbria Constabulary makes no promises about when it will restart accepting applications, only that it will review the situation in January 2023. There are fears that police failures in Cumbria and across the country will drive the creation of a black market for sporting guns and ammunition, as country people try to find the best ways of going about the business of managing wildlife. Leading academics in the UK have attacked the avalanche of misinformation over trophy hunting. After the all-party parliamentary group on trophy hunting at Westminster published a report which contained unchallenged false facts, Professor Adam Hart says the disinformation the antis put forward is exceptional. The professor says the sheer volume of disinformation is hard to combat, which he believes is part of the antis' strategy. He says inaccuracy is influencing political decision-making. Nicola Bitchell from the University of Oxford Wildlife Conservation Research Unit agrees with Hart. He says that although there is misinformation on both sides of the trophy hunting debate, what the public encounters is one-sided. Thanks to Richard Walton for the story. A burst sewage pipe has killed 1,000 fish in an English river. Specialist teams from Thames Water brought more than 20 tankers to stop the leak at a sewage pumping station in Swindon. Wastewater from the leak escaped into the River Ray. The Environment Agency confirms that the leak has killed around 1,000 fish. A spokesman for the water company says it's a complex repair, which will take around a week to deal with. And English rivers have won a famous ally. Former lead singer of the Undertones and keen fly fisher, Fergal Sharkey, is campaigning to protect waterways in England. He says there's not a single river that's in good environmental health, and he blames water companies. He says parts of England could also run out of water within 30 years because of industrial and political failure. At Westminster, the chair of the National Infrastructure Commission, John Armitt, supports Sharkey's views and says the government's approach to keeping the nation's taps running amounts to keeping its fingers crossed. Mystery surrounds the death of a Danish hunter found dead in a Swedish forest. Police suspect the man shot a wild boar in the forest and was attacked. They believe he was injured and fled up a hunting tower where his body was found. An investigation has concluded that no crime has occurred. Officers are examining if the hunter had fired his gun and injured a wild boar. The Swedish Hunters Association says it's the first time such an accident has led to a death. We had our own close-up experience with the Swedish wild boar in this film. Link to it below. Thanks to Per Holmseth for the story. The vulture population in one of South Africa's largest parks is under threat because of a mass poisoning. More than 100 birds and a hyena died after feeding on a buffalo carcass in Kruger National Park. Rangers on patrol discovered the dead buffalo, which they believe was deliberately laced with poison. Vulture body parts are used in a traditional medicine called muti. Police are investigating. The number of tigers in the wild has gone up by 40%. That's the conclusion of a new assessment by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Between 2015 and 2020, numbers rose from 3,200 to 4,500. The IUCN says its report is the first reasonable, rigorous estimate of global tiger numbers and sets a realistic baseline for future evaluations. And finally, a filmmaker has been charged for illegally transporting a tortoise. The National Geographic filmmaker claims she took the Indian star tortoise to a veterinary centre near Mumbai for treatment. Because she didn't obtain permission from the local forest department, police booked her under India's wildlife protection laws. It has briefed the media that she is not cooperating and is using the tortoise to film a documentary on the illegal wildlife trade. India is sensitive about coverage of wildlife crime. In 2017, it banned the BBC for 5 years from all national parks and sanctuaries after a film about poaching at a tiger reserve in Assam. You are now up to date with Field Sports Channel News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.
Buying shooting kits? Then head to Kit Finder and our team will help you find the right product at a fair price from dealers all over the UK. Kit Finder, the shooting kit comparison website.
Thank you, David. Now, staying on pesky predators, the Northern Cape Professional Hunting School runs jackal and caracal shooting courses. This is fox shooting with a difference. Here for you to learn from the Africans is a film about the kit they use. Now that's a varminting platform. The Northern Cape Professional Hunting School is where kids go on an African gamekeeping course, and no gamekeeping course is complete without predator control. Here it's caracals and jackals that raid your henhouse. The school has 2 guest instructors, both of them former students, who now have thriving careers shooting around 600 jackal and 100 caracal a year between them. This is Mario in his custom-built Predator rig.
This is the usual dioptic I'm running, so when I drive around I just use the handheld spotlight until I pick up something, and then I can identify it. I only use one spotlight in front, the switch and the dimmer right here. My caller, switch the sounds is right here, and then the GPS is just on my right hand side, so I can easily locate the waypoints that I'm marked for the jackal. And then when I get onto the stand where I start to call, I just switch the rifles. So I just take this dioptic off, just put in the thermal optic. And that's why I use 2 rifles. So now I don't use any lights on the stand, so I just now use the thermal. It's also very important to use a dark color vehicle for the moonlight nights, and the jackal quickly picks up a white vehicle.
The other instructor, MF, talks us through his preferred jackal shooting vehicle.
I use a double cab 4x4 Toyota. 4x4 is necessary when you have difficult terrain to drive in. And because I'm driving mainly at night, I have a good set of spotlights here just to see the dangerous animals on the road, so I don't drive into them. And you come around. I've made this plate here to hang the jackal and caracal against, so I don't get all the blood onto the backside of my truck, of my pickup. And where the double cab also works well, on the backside I can put all my lights, my rifles in, so you don't bump around on the gravel road.
Now you may have spotted Mario's snazzy rifle. He has put thought into it.
I'm using a 6mm XC, chain bit in a 6mm XC, just with the Boyd's wooden stock, and also a heavy barrel. It's more used in competition style shooting, so it's very accurate, easy to reload, and gives good speed. I use a 75 grain VMAX bullet at 3,700 feet per second. On the optic is a Pulsar thermal LRF Trail XP50.
It has the attention of the students, and if you would like a holiday with a difference, contact the Northern Cape Professional Hunting School. If you like the look of it, you can source a lot of that kit on kitfinder.co.uk. Thanks to all at the Northern Cape Professional Hunting School, especially Kayla van Vuren, who filmed that for us. Now, deer are suffering on British roads as never before. Deborah looks at the messy world of road traffic accidents.
In the UK in 2022, you're twice as likely to hit a deer than in 1997. That risk has gone up 4-fold since 1980. The government-funded Deer Initiative estimates there could be up to 74,000 road accidents involving deer each year. Deer vehicle collisions injure hundreds of people and cause more than £16 million worth of insurance payouts. Dr. Jochen Langbein, who has studied accidents involving deer for more than 20 years, estimates that the cost of the collisions to the economy is up to £50 million annually.
The great majority of deer road casualties or deer accidents are not recorded at all. The only time an accident has to be recorded by law is with the deer is when there's a human injury accident, and even then the fact that a deer was involved rather than any other animal still doesn't actually appear in official national statistics.
The government says the UK deer population is at an all-time high, yet the Highways Agency pulled funding from the only national campaign to raise awareness of deer vehicle collisions. This means the government has stopped funding all research into deer accidents, including the Drive Deer Aware campaign.
I'm very grateful that they did carry on funding it for 20 years, of data collection when initially I'd only hoped for 2 or 3 years. So it's very good that they did carry on funding, but the actual reasons that they had to stop this year, I don't know. It's obviously a lot of tight budgets. I think we're back to the highest level that we've had, and it's likely to carry on increasing again from now on, unless there's another big economic downturn or a big change in deer management strategy. I think we're still going to have tens of thousands, sort of in excess of 75,000 a year. And it's obviously our deer populations aren't increasing everywhere, but they are still continuing to spread, especially throughout the lowland Scotland and in the east of England, and those muntjac populations are getting bigger and bigger, and they're starting to make up a very high percentage of the total number of deer collisions.
Mike Dickinson is a deer stalker with more than 35 years' experience. As well as stalking wild deer, he farms deer at Colton Moor in Staffordshire. Police call on him to dispatch deer injured on roads nearby.
The police come and get you to do it, so you want to know who's going to insure you. Can you have the instruction to take over if need be? Will the police be in attendance, which they're not always? Will the police not prosecute you for firing a firearm in the road? If the deer gets over the fence into the field at the side, the police then can't give you authority to do it. It belongs to the landowner. It's just, a nightmare of a scenario to get into.
The now defunct Drive Deer Aware campaign advised drivers to be cautious between sunset and midnight. It also warns if you see a deer, there may be others.
Once that lead animal goes, all the others rush across, and that's often the case anyway, is that if one deer, the first one isn't hit, it's the next one you need to, and you've seen it, it's the next one you need to watch out for. And that's what people often think, oh good, it's gone, and then they hit the next one.
Biggest problem usually is the car will come along, because we only have red deer around here, so red are fairly tall. The car will hit the deer, smash its legs, the deer will roll over the bonnet, smash the windscreen and roll inside the car with you. It's only got broken legs, but it's going to be struggling like mad. You're strapped in the car, and that's where the fatalities come from.
Each local authority in Britain is responsible for its own prevention measures. Cannock Chase in Staffordshire is a hotspot for deer accidents. Dr Langbine has worked with the County Council to reduce accidents involving deer.
It's been very good. I've sort of worked a bit with Cannock Chase, but they've been very active, especially one of their rangers, Roger Taylor. It's been in trying different deterrents at the roadsides, and we've tried different deterrents which emit sound signals as well as light signals, which importantly are not just the red reflective mirrors, because mammals can't see red anyway, so it never was a good idea, but they're trying these with strobe lights with blue and yellow and so on. But unfortunately, it's being trialled in an area that's dominated by fallow deer, which are obviously a herding species. And I think they'd actually be most likely to be effective with more solitary species like roe deer and muntjac.
Mike believes the government needs to take action to tackle the rising problem.
I think if you hit a deer on the road, the accident needs to be logged, so you get an incident number off the police. Therefore, they've got some official statistics on how many are being hit. Then that way the insurance will cover it better, because it's a officially logged incident, the same way as you would if you'd hit a cow or a dog on the road, just so they can gather some more proper data. There'll be more interaction between people and deer. If there's more deer on the road, there's way too many cars on the road anyway, so they're bound to come into conflict with each other. A deer will write a car off without thinking about it, and then, like I say, just run off. They're solid things.
We've got regional maps for every single county in the country where we've got identify the hotspots, and the information's there. The trouble is the county councils haven't got a lot of funding at the moment to do anything, but at least I'd hope we get this information out to each council so they are more aware where the hotspots are and actually take some action. I mean, What action they can take is another matter, because deer road warning signs, the wildlife warning sign, obviously people tend to ignore in a very short time. And the only things that really work, I mean, we can go through a list of the different things that work, but they tend to be different for different types of roads, and they tend to not come very cheaply.
For more information on the issue, see the Lungbyne Wildlife Channel on YouTube.
Thanks all who took part in that, and thanks again to the Fieldsports Nation for funding that item. Their prize this week, they get a weekly prize draw in their own show, Fieldsports Extra, out on Tuesday nights, is one of the prints signed by all of them commemorating the Westminster 8 bursting into Parliament in 2004. My chat with 6 of those guys on stage at the Carter Jonas Game Fair Theatre is out now as one of our podcasts. Links below. Next up, in our latest field tester film, Ian Hodge from Ian Hodge Field Sports on choosing a PCP airgun for hunting rabbits.
Yeah, the PCP market has just grown and grown and grown. I can remember selling a PCP and it was, you remembered it because you sold a PCP as opposed to spring gun. But now, I wouldn't say all of them because it is on price, but we sell tremendous amount of PCPs now. The price in reality has come down, and I think people can afford them and they can see the benefits of a PCP with magazines and the quietness and the ease of operation. But it's for every application, from pest controllers, farmers, gamekeepers, right down to the chap who had one rabbit turn up in his garden, and he came in and spent £1,500 odd to shoot this one rabbit. And I said, well, I could have got somebody to shoot that one for you. Oh, no, I want to get the so-and-so because I think it had ate all his plants that he had just put in. He wanted revenge. Never seen the chap again, and the gun is probably gathering dust in the cupboard somewhere. The most expensive one we've got here with the scope on, so it's a complete outfit, is the BSA R10. Obviously, BSA needs no introduction at all. And then we've got a Stoger PCP, which Stoger is a part of the Beretta family. It's quite a big family, Beretta. Obviously that one's made in Europe, assembled in Birmingham, English gun. This is Chinese. Nothing wrong with this gun. It isn't quite finished off, quite the same as the BSA, which you would imagine for 600 odd pounds difference, you would expect a bit more. But they've both got multi-shot, magazine fed. One of the drawbacks with this one, it's quite a small air cylinder, so you don't get that many shots, as against this one, which, depending on conditions and so on, could be anything from 140 to 160 shots per fill. And this one, I think this one's only about 40. I get it quite often, people say, you know, is that one more accurate or more powerful? Well, no, they're all the same power, unless you particularly buy a junior gun, but the ones that are designed as for pest control and serious shooting, they're all within a fraction the same power. It's just how the guns are finished off and the balance and so on. I mean, the bolt on this one isn't quite so smooth as the bolt on that one. This one, we've put this scope on. This is not a BSA scope, but it's a far better scope than that one, a little bit bigger, and the quality is a bit more there. But not everybody wants to spend nearly £1,000 on a gun. If they've got a few pigeons in barns they want to shoot and look at it purely as a pest control unit, you know, they don't need to spend any more. And again, the other day a family came in, a family of 4, mother and father, 2 boys, bought one each of these, which was very nice. They were my new best friends that day. Whereas if they went and bought one each of these, it would be nearly £4,000. We might have gave them a little discount, but you know, they went away with a gun each, and you know, the fun what they're going to have in the garden, shooting targets with that, you know, as a family unit. You know, it's lovely for them. With this one, because you've got a good shot count on the cylinder, they want to charge it up, walk out. I mean, if you just said that one's got 100 shots, to go out for an evening's rabbit shooting, to shoot 100 shots is a lot of shooting. So, but it will do a few more than that. So the gun's loaded up, they can go and they haven't got to worry about losing air. So it is one for people taking it a bit more serious. It's more the top end. It's still not the most expensive. You can spend as much as you want on an air gun, really. The bottles are exactly the same. We can have different size bottles. We go from 3 litre up to 12 litres. Again, it's how much shooting you want to do or how far away you live from us. If you live 40 miles away and You don't want to be travelling to charge your bottle up all the time. People tend to go for a bigger bottle. But you know, a 3 litre bottle will keep a gun going a long time. The stock is sort of like a rubberised finish, where this is definitely plastic. It is finished off a heavier and a better made gun, but you know, you get what you paid for. You look at the bolt handle on that one compared to that one. But there again, if you're only firing a few shots, do you need any more?
Thanks, Ian. Now to the wider world of hunting and shooting on YouTube. It is brought to you by James Marchington, Hunting YouTube.
This is Hunting YouTube, which aims to show the best hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. Our friends at Jack Pike have a new film out featuring Andy Crow decoying pigeons at harvest with his mate Gary. They set up their hide so they can shoot in front and behind and make a bag of well over 100. Shooting instructor Toby Manners is after woodies too, decoying them over rape stubble and pulling off some impressive long shots. Meanwhile, Shots and Pots is out on a fresh drilled field just a short ride from Stockholm. Instead of building a hide, he's wearing a leafy camo suit, which seems to work on Swedish pigeons at least. Once you've shot your pigeons, you'll want to cook them. And Ely Hawks chef James Golding has got it covered with this recipe for wood pigeon with cosmic mash and salsa verde. Meanwhile, with the row rut in full swing, this German channel has a great evening, calling in 3 bucks in the space of 2 hours. In northern Ontario, Canada in the Rough is taking a float plane for a black bear hunt that turns out to be an emotional roller coaster. Over to the Florida Everglades, and Snakeaholic is hunting invasive pythons at night by torchlight, wrestling them with his bare hands. Rather him than me. Finally, someone else who isn't afraid to risk a nip. Joseph Carter the Mink Man is using his pack of trained mink and dogs to clear this infestation of over 100 rats. That's it for this week. We've put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the eye symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you'd like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email Charlie the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv.
Well, that's it for this week. If you haven't done so, please whiz over to our website, fieldsportschannel.tv, where you can click like us on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, pop your email address into our register page, and we'll contact you about this show, Field Sports Britain. It's out 7 PM UK time every Wednesday. And this has been Field Sports Britain. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.